Hey guys, it's Simon here with HobbiesofaMan once again, and today we're doing our wrap-up video for the month of June. Now, it's been an interesting month. I feel like I've done a lot of stuff and yet haven't maybe read as much as I wanted to, but also maybe read more than I thought I would anyways. And it's been good. It's been kind of odd. A lot of things have happened for me personally, and nothing that I really want to get into too much, but I do want to talk about it a little bit, I guess. So I got home June 1st or 2nd from a 2-week vacation in Mexico. And then I felt like the whole month I've just been like full steam ahead. You know, I had to figure out where to move. I found out, the right strategy for that. I'm moving in the next couple of days, so I'm recording this early. However, I do have enough videos on the channel to tide me over until after the move is done, so that's good. Then I had to deal with some personal stuff. My friend, got his PhD. He moved out. I feel sad about that. It's kind of weird to be used to someone's presence for so long. I lived with this guy for 7 years, and then suddenly he's not there anymore. It's kind of odd. It feels weird. It feels interesting because it is a time of change, but also just kind of odd, like sad, but also, kind of interesting, hopeful maybe. Then my sister's birthday, Howard Days, which was awesome. Stitch and Dogs, a fellow YouTuber, came down to visit from Canada for that event. It was wonderful. It was very, very fun. Great time, spent at Howard Days. And then from there, I just feel like I've been doing a lot of stuff personally. I have not had time to rest. And yet I've managed to do a lot of reading and a lot of stuff. I think that my social life kind of really felt very large this month as opposed to usual, when it feels kind of medium or kind of small in comparison. It just felt like there was a lot of stuff going on socially for me this month, and I'm happy about that. I think it's great, but I'm also kind of tired about it, or tired because of it, I guess is the right word. And so I don't know where I am right now. I feel like there's a lot of stuff going on, right? But some of that stuff was involving my hobbies, which is reading and watching movies. So let's talk about that now. In terms of my watch list, we watched through A New Hope. We finished Empire Strikes Back. We finished Star Wars Episode 6, The Return of the Jedi. It was nice. It was wonderful to watch all of the George Lucas movies again. We kind of missed Clone Wars, but it's fine. I don't think anyone really would mind all that much. It was kind of like the last, movie watching marathon that I had with my roommate, and it was nice. It was wonderful. I love Star Wars. It was cool to share that with him. He kind of had seen the movies before, but not really cared too much about them. This time, I still think he didn't really care about them that much, but he at least was interested enough in finishing at least the original 6 movies. And it was great. I had a lot of fun with it. I love these movies, so great stuff there. We watched through a few different Mission Impossible movies. I had just come back from Mexico. I was riding that, Final Reckoning high because I love the Mission Impossible movies. And we started watching them from the beginning, or at least I did, and he kind of, my roommate kind of watched some of them, or some moments from those movies with me. Mission Impossible 1 is fine, not really my favorite. Mission Impossible 2 is very cool stylistically, but the story just doesn't really make too much sense to me. Mission Impossible 3 is an old nostalgic favorite for me. My dad used to love watching this movie when I was growing up, and I remember very vividly it was a movie that we watched over and over and over again. It was also a movie that feels visually very similar to a Transformers movie, especially those early Michael Bay Transformers. I think they came out around the same time, but they have that kind of similar orange color grading to them. It just looks like weird, but also good, and I quite like them. We also watched Dan to Dan Evil Eye. We watched this with our old friend and other old roommate that we had, and we went to the movie theater for it, and it was wonderful. I really enjoyed the movie. There were some issues with it, mostly with how the adaptation focuses on some things that don't need to be focused on that much. Stuff that in the manga doesn't really feel all that important, but in the anime ends up being very key or very, highlighted in a way that feels kind of dirty or kind of nasty. I don't know. Then we went to watch The Materialist the day before my roommate left to go back to his home, and it was a very interesting movie. It's an A24 movie, so it's an indie movie, it's a movie that is supposed to be a romantic comedy, but in my opinion, it's not really written that way. It's written more as a, almost feels like a documentary, but not really. It feels like reality TV, maybe, if that makes sense. I'm not really sure how to phrase it. The best way I can describe the movie to you is if an MBA, Master's in Business Administration, wrote a rom-com and forgot that there was supposed to be comedy in it. Because I found the movie very funny because it's just like very real. And my roommate found it pretty funny, and my sister and her friend found it pretty funny when we watched it. But we were the only people in the whole theater, that was pretty full, to have laughed at most of the situations that happened. And so that leads me to believe that either it didn't land, or what I actually think is that the movie was not able to really portray itself as a comedy. I laugh because I have a particular sense of humor, and the way in which the movie describes some things is very funny to me because it's sadly very realistic, right? The movie follows this woman who is a matchmaker in New York. And so she meets with a bunch of people to try to get the matches. The male characters that she's trying to get matches for are ridiculous. They want super hot young women that are not stupid, but also not that intelligent. And then the female characters want dudes that are like 6'4", super rich, and all of this stuff. And it portrays both sides pretty negatively, but it does have a woman positive lean at least a little bit, right? And just that kind of like crazy, like Tinder-esque online dating scene, like esque kind of representation of what dating is like, especially at these levels where all of these people are rather rich and or very full of money in some way, and they're not really looking for, or they're looking for love, but they're treating it as a business transaction. Felt very interesting. I think it's pretty honest. Historically, most, romance was kind of not really part of the equation when it came to marriages. It was, trade, politics, business. So it makes sense to think of marriage in that way. But at the same time, in the modern world, we kind of romanticize the idea that you fall in love and then you get married because it's valuable to you to be tied with this person in some spiritual sense, right? And so it was interesting. And then it turns out that it's a movie about this woman that gets people to matchmake, being matchmaked by herself or by the situation that the movie forces, right? Which is that she meets this really rich, hot dude by Pedro Pascal. And then she also has this ex who was a bum, loser, kind of actor character, who's played by Chris Evans. And the two characters provide her kind of this interesting dichotomy. She has history with one, none with the other. She kind of hated her relationship with one. She's really loving her relationship with the other. She, finds this guy really poor and this guy really rich. And then ultimately, even though the right move would be to go with the rich guy, who's a wonderful, character and person, and the right move for her, she ends up going with the bum because, she loved him. And so it subverts the idea at the end that, that marriage is not a business transaction. Marriage is about love, but it does so in a very bad way, if that makes sense. Like, by all metrics, the Pedro Pascal character was the right choice. Even if she didn't necessarily love him, she at least enjoyed his company, and she could have continued to enjoy his company until she did fall in love with him, because, you can do that, right? To an extent. Whereas the other guy was a complete piece of work, and yet because she had previously loved him, she thought that he was a better choice. And it just really doesn't work, because you set up the whole movie to explain that she would not make that choice, and yet she does. And it's kind of weird. And it's supposed to be like a love conquers all kind of thing, but it doesn't really work out. So it's really weird. It's a really odd movie. And I thought that it was a bad movie. But talking to my roommate, he mentioned, hey, at the end of the day, movies are art, and good art is art that makes you feel something, that makes you interested in it, that makes you talk about it, right? And we spent about an hour talking about the movie. And so from that perspective, the movie is good. It does the right thing. It gets you thinking, it gets you talking, and it makes you kind of explore, concepts. At the same time, from a consumerist point of view, like the viewpoint that I would look at it from, which is, would I go watch this movie again? Not necessarily in theaters, but like at home. And the answer is no. I don't think I would ever watch this movie again. I might watch it if, someone else mentioned, hey, I heard about this movie a long time ago. I'd want to watch it. Do you want to watch it with me? And I would go along with it because there might be an interesting conversation out of it at the end. But I would not necessarily enjoy my time with it the second time. I don't necessarily think that I would go out of my way to look for it a second time. And so from my perspective, the movie is not good, but it's interesting, if that makes sense. And so those are my thoughts there on Materialist. And that's basically all I've been watching this month. In terms of reading, in terms of novels, I think I read one. I read The Trailsman, which I don't have on hand, but I did do a review for it. The Trailsman, number 322 or 322, was The Apache Ambush. And that was my June on the Range novel this year. It's by John Sharp, although it's a house name that actually is just basically there's a bunch of ghostwriters that write under this name for the Trailsman series, which I think is still ongoing. I'm not really sure, but the Trailsman is basically adult Western. So it's a Western character who goes through adventures, and throughout these adventures, he ends up with hot women, and they have sex. And that's kind of what the draw of that is, right? It's that like male-oriented romance plus the Western genre, and kind of making it work that way. Louis L'Amour doesn't really do this, although some of the Louis L'Amour books that are kind of standalones almost get that to that point. They just never actually cross the boundary into showing you some of the scenes that you would expect happen. But the character Sky Fargo doesn't really care. He's kind of like that type of character where his only weakness is hot women, and his adventures take him around and let him meet a lot of them. And so he's constantly dealing with that, right? It was a good book. I really enjoyed it. I do want to pick up more. I'm not sure that I will anytime soon for a few reasons. One, the local half-price books that I go to, the one that's nearest to me, doesn't have a very good selection of them. Two, it's kind of unclear if I'll continue reading those or maybe try out a different one, like a different one in the genre, kind of like Long Arm, or I can't remember what the other one is, right? But I do want more eventually. The thing is that Trailsman is definitely not a series of books that you should binge. It's definitely a palate cleanser type book. It's a series of books that you can read in an afternoon and kind of enjoy through that time, but are not necessarily hefty, like good literature. They're kind of pop lit, if that makes sense. And so you don't necessarily need a lot of them. You just need one every once in a while, right? And so there's no real rush for me to collect more, but I would like to buy some at some point, right? So maybe I'll get them, digitally if they're available. I know that The Executioner, which is something similar but not quite the same, is available digitally. I just bought one the other day, so maybe I'll pick them up digitally. I'm not really sure, but I did enjoy myself with that, and June on the Range has been fun. So that's it for novels. Let's look at comic books. I basically read comic books exclusively, actually that's not true, almost exclusively as singles. So let's go through my stack of singles that I picked up this month. A lot of these are actually from last month, from May. So here's Energon Universe, and I read a bunch of other Free Comic Book Day books, but I'm only going to mention the ones I really care about. Here's Transformers 20, very good stuff here. They recently announced who's going to take over after Daniel Warren Johnson. It's going to be Robert Kirkman, and his art partner will be Dan Mora, and that's really awesome. I'm kind of upset, partially. On one hand, I was very much looking forward to being able to take a book off my list, and that was going to be Transformers after Daniel Warren Johnson left. On the other hand, I'm very excited about a Dan Mora Kirkman crossover thing. Like, I think that they together will do great, but the book has risen in price because of this. Now that they have top talent, or top talent that isn't, or that has a lot of recognition currently, like Dan Mora and like Robert Kirkman, they have decided to up the price of the book for $3.99 to $4.99, and that's a bit much. I don't like that. I think it's understandable, but just not worth it. Like, can't you go to, $4.50 instead of $5? Like, why does it have to be a full dollar jump? I don't like that. I wouldn't like the 50-cent jump either, but at least it would be a little bit easier to palate. Just too many books are $5 now, and it's not working out for me. I think that my my pull list is a bit bloated, and within that bloat, I'm just spending way too much money on that. So we'll see how that goes. But it is what it is. We'll move on from that. So then we read Godzilla versus X-Men. This was probably the best one out of all of these books. I hope that the Thor one is good, but after the one that I read after this one, I think it was Avengers, I'm just not looking forward to it. I don't think it's going to be that exciting. Witchblade number 11. Awesome stuff here. I really, really enjoyed it. Giuseppe Cafaro actually left a comment on my review. I haven't responded to him yet, but I really do appreciate that he took the time to watch it. And he left some nice comments there, and he explained that he actually loves Witchblade so much that it's basically like his white whale. It's the one series that he loves to work for, and that he's very happy that he's doing it, right? Then we have Blood Wars here. This is book 4. This was great. I really, really enjoyed myself reading this. This cover is also phenomenal. I just love how it looks. Then we have Wonder Woman 21. This was not an issue I liked all that much, but you know, it's been enjoyable overall. I just don't necessarily think that the focus on Batman is that important. It feels like somehow, you know, and specifically in this case, Tom King is looking for ways to write Batman instead of whatever he's actually writing. And I don't love that. On the other hand, I do like the Wonder Woman comic anyways. I think that he's doing a good job in general. It's just like, why did you do it this way for these 2 issues, right? Then we have Spider-Man 17, Ultimate Spider-Man 17. Great stuff here. We see Harry realize what Peter was going through when Harry was being a bit militant about his work. Then we have Absolute Superman number 8. This was great. I really, really enjoyed this. This story continues to be very interesting. It's not necessarily my favorite Superman story ever. I don't necessarily think that it's like the greatest thing ever, but out of all of the Absolutes, it's the one that I was most interested in, and I'm continuing to pick it up because I am enjoying it. I will pick up the Wonder Woman Absolute Edition, or the Absolute Wonder Woman series, sorry, but I think I'll probably trade wait for those, or maybe buy those in hardcover. I think that that's probably better for me, because I don't necessarily like the artist that's the main artist on that series, and I don't want to collect it week to week. I can just rather wait for it for later. So we'll do that. But I will continue to collect Absolute Superman for sure. Then we have Godzilla versus Kong versus the Justice League, book 2 or series 2. This is pretty interesting. This is really the Suicide Squad series, if that makes sense. And I love this cover by Dan Mora here. It looks great. Then we have Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles x Naruto. It was a very fun ending. I'm kind of sad that it ended so quickly, though. I think that it should have had more issues, but I think that's just kind of what IDW does now. A lot of the smaller but still quite powerful companies like IDW, like Titan, really do love that 4-issue format for their trades. And I get why, but I'm not necessarily sure that it's the best interest of the consumer to enjoy that, because on one hand, it minimizes decompression, which is ultimately good, because a lot of times stories that end up getting pulled out too long. On the other hand, that loss of decompression forces you to really only focus on the action bits, when in stuff like crossover, the stuff that you want is the interaction between the characters, not just them fighting against each other or with each other, right? And so there's a loss there in exchange for a much tighter story. So I don't know. We'll see what you guys think about that down below. We have Conan number 21, awesome Panosian cover here, very, very great, and I'm really enjoying this series. It has a new artist here, Fernando Danino, and he's awesome. He does a great job here. Then we have Transformers 21, great cover here, I love it, very Star Wars, and it's great. This was a pretty good issue. Megatron is going crazy and beating the shit out of the Autobots in this one. The Moon is following us, number 9, good, kind of near climax here, near ending there. Here's number 10. This one is the end there. And this was a good series overall. I liked it. I think it was good. I think that maybe it needed a bit more, maybe 2 more issues to make it a 12-issue series would have been better. At the same time, it does what it needs to do very well. And I liked it. And it definitely tugs on your heartstrings. But I think maybe it's better for me to read it all in one go again and then give my final thoughts on that, instead of just telling you what I think now, because I'm not really sure what I think. So yeah, then we have Flash Gordon number 9. Great series here. Love this thing. Very fun, very enjoyable. And this one has been quite good at this point. Then we have World's Finest number 39. This is continuing on with the We Are Yesterday storyline. If I remember correctly, one of these I liked and one of these I didn't, and I can't remember which one's which, but it's been an interesting series. This crossover event between World's Finest and Justice League Unlimited is cool. It kind of gets a little too timey-wimey for my taste, because it's not like linearly, you know, set up for time travel. It's kind of like all over the place, and it's not really clear when each thing is taking place. And so I get a bit confused, but at the same time, it's not that big of a deal. It doesn't really matter as long as you understand, hey, they're in the past now, and hey, they're in the present now. You know, it works. So, I don't know. Satana number 4, amazing series. I'm really, really enjoying the artwork here. I think the storytelling is quite good. I'm not necessarily the biggest Satana fan ever, so I assume that I'm missing some of the context, but it's still quite good. Then we have Justice League 7. Like I said, not really sure about my feelings on that, but you know, it is what it is. Bug Wars number 5. This is the penultimate issue before the end of the first book. It's been pretty good. It kind of really sets up the fact that, you know, Slade is definitely going to go kind of crazy there at the end. Flash Gordon number 10. Awesome ending here. There was a cool twist there at the end that was very exciting. Avengers versus Godzilla. This was a crapshoot. This was horrible. I did not enjoy this at all. I don't recommend you guys pick this up. But yeah, actually, I was going to think of something positive. I guess Jet Jaguar shows up and that's cool. But I didn't really like that all that much, because it doesn't really work out that well. This is a great cover, very funny. This issue was not really my favorite though. I like it. I think that Tom King does a good job, like I've mentioned before, but this was kind of weird. Also, it didn't have some Pierce artwork in it, and that's a shame, because whoever took over was not the best at all, but this cover is great. I think it's very funny. Then we have Zatanna number 5. Awesome stuff here. Great artwork, like I said. Solomon Kane, we have book 3. I put these in reverse order, sorry. Book 2, very nice. And book 1 here with this Mick Mignola cover that I'm not really that big of a fan of. I think it looks good, but I don't really like Mignola's artwork all that much. I don't like his style. I think it's very interesting and stylistic, obviously, but it's not a style that necessarily works all that well for me. So I don't really love it, but it's good. And that Solomon Kane story is great. Pat Searcher, the guy that's writing it, does an amazing job. He really understands Solomon Kane, and he really does a good job to develop the story so that when the crossover happens later in this year, you're going to understand Solomon Kane better. You're going to get how he's tied in, and he's not just going to appear out of nowhere like in the previous year's crossover event. So I'm very much looking forward to that. So that's it for the single issue comic books. Otherwise, besides the single issues, I did start reading through this. This is Fantastic Four, the Penguin edition. This covers a few different, kind of issues. So this is written by Stan Lee and Jack Kirby. The series is edited by Ben Saunders, and the foreword here is by Jerry Kraft. Now, this is a really interesting book. I got this for about $11, which is a crazy steal since these are supposed to be $50 books. And I got this, I think, from last year, kind of like Prime Day event. For whatever reason, it was $11, and I thought it was great. I'm about halfway through. I don't know if you guys can see there. Yeah, and I'm reading through the introduction of Doctor Doom, and it's been pretty interesting to read through this. You know, I understand the general premise of the Fantastic Four. I've watched all of the Fantastic Four movies except for that one from like really long time ago. I watched the early 2000 ones, the middle 2010s, and I'm excited for the new one. I think it'll be very, very good. I think the Fantastic Four are interesting. I have enjoyed myself reading through this so far. I will do a proper review for it in July, and I will be reading another Fantastic Four story then as well. But the thing about the Fantastic Four is that at least in these initial issues, the artwork is great, the storytelling is fine, but the character work is kind of odd. On one hand, I love it. I think it's interesting to have these very disparate characters kind of functioning as a single family. On the other hand, it doesn't really seem like they want to be there, if that makes sense. Like Ben Grimm specifically is just so angry at everything, and it's kind of unclear, like if he was already like that, if it's all purely based on the fact that he looks like the Thing now, or what is the issue there. And he doesn't seem to love or be all that interested in being friends with Reed Richards, even though that's kind of like what I understand of them, right? So it's supposed to be that Ben Grimm and Reed Richards are best friends. He becomes the uncle character in the family, and Sue is the mom character, and of course Johnny is the younger brother, but functionally he's like the son character, right? The younger person character. And that's not really that dynamic we have, or we do, but it's almost like Ben Grimm initially is more of an estranged family member than he is a proper family member. And I wonder when that change is, or when that change happens. On some hands, it's very cool. On one hand, it is pretty cool. It's kind of interesting to see these characters that almost seem like they don't want to be there, be with each other. But on the other hand, the Fantastic Four is supposed to be Marvel's premier family, right? Or the first family of superheroes. And so it almost feels like maybe that's not really true. Like, that's something that eventually became true, but it is not currently true, if that makes sense. So I don't know. I thought it was interesting. I was not expecting it. I thought that they started as like a cohesive family from the get-go. And maybe you can argue that they are a cohesive family anyways, even with all the arguments, because it's pretty normal for families. But that's a bit disheartening and a bit sad to look at it that way. So I don't particularly like it, but it's fair. It's understandable. It's kind of interesting. I have enjoyed myself with it a lot. It's just kind of odd because that's not what I was expecting out of it, if that makes sense. So yeah, that's it for that. Beyond that, I did read a lot of manga this month, mostly by accident, actually. So let's start with the digital stuff first. So I've been reading through Odor of the Flame, or Otter of the Flame. This is a new series by the creator of the Red Hood series that got axed because Japan didn't like that it was like about storytelling or something. I can't remember what the issue was, but this one is Viking inspired. It's a fantasy kind of like Bleach-esque kind of series, or maybe kind of like a little bit like My Hero Academia, where there's a character who has no power, who gains power, and he's very caring. And he goes through training in order to develop himself. And currently they're fighting their first big boss character. And it's been pretty good. I've enjoyed it a lot. I like the art style a lot. I think that the styling is good. But it is ultimately just a superhero story with like a Viking veneer slapped on it. And I like that. I think it's cool. I've been enjoying myself quite a lot. Then I read Ichi the Witch. I read through all of the issues that are out so far, all of the chapters that are out so far. If you guys remember, if you guys have followed my channel for a while, I had initially said that I didn't really like Ichi the Witch. I thought that the change in tone across the first chapter was kind of annoying because it was too much. As I read through it, those changes in tone felt less ridiculous, or maybe they happened less. I'm not really sure, to be honest with you, but I found myself finding them endearing when they did happen. And as the story progressed more and you kind of learned a bit more about Ichi and developed your interest in the characters, it kind of worked out for me very well. And with the current arc that they're going through right now, the storytelling has gotten really, really phenomenal. And I've really enjoyed myself reading through it. I will be doing arc reviews for it throughout the month of July, because I didn't get around to reviewing it here in June. But it's been really fun. I've really liked it a lot. And, it's by a creator that deserves some level of appreciation, or maybe allowance, if that makes sense. This creator is one that does an amazing job, especially with Welcome to Demon School, Iruma-kun. And it's very different. Like, the style is very different between the two stories, but you can tell that it's by the same guy to an extent. And it's been really great. I've loved it. I've accidentally read through all of them. I was going to read a few chapters just to see if I liked it or not, and I couldn't put it down. And it was great. It was phenomenal. I recommend you guys read through it. I also read through, what's it called? Embers, the soccer manga that was available on Shonen Jump. It ended with chapter 20. It got axed, and that's really disappointing because I thought that it was finally finding its legs and it was going to do really good, but Japan didn't like it for whatever reason, and that's disappointing because I thought it was good. On one hand, it kind of leans a little bit too much on that kind of like Blue Lock cringe factor without having the character development necessary for you to care. Like Yoichi and Bachira and all of the characters that you follow in Blue Lock have very specific, distinct character traits, and the early days of Blue Lock really help you understand them and grow to like them. And then the further the story goes, the more you like them, and so you care more and more about their exploits, right? Embers didn't really get that chance and introduced a lot of characters too quickly, in my opinion. And maybe it just didn't work because it felt like it was just competing with Blue Lock and doing it worse. Maybe, I'm not really sure. I liked it a lot. I thought it was cool. I thought that it was cool that it focused on defense over offense, which is what Blue Lock focuses on. But I guess it just didn't work out for Japan, and that's a shame because I thought it was good. So it is what it is, I guess. But that was the digital manga. In terms of physical, I've read through Delicious Dungeon number 6. Very good stuff. I really enjoyed it. This is still covered in the anime, which is kind of interesting. I thought the anime ended at the first 5, but apparently I guess it ends maybe into 7 at some point. This was great. I really, really enjoyed it. I love the story. And now that I know, now that I love the story, because previously I thought it was cool, and then I watched the anime and then I loved it. Now that I've loved the story, I can see myself appreciating the manga more, because when I first read it, I thought that the manga was good, but not necessarily amazing, right? Like, it felt like it kind of spun its wheels a bit too much, and it didn't offer me what I was looking for at the time. Maybe when I watched the anime, I was in a better mindset to enjoy it, or it's just that the anime is so well done that it makes it better, right? I don't know what the answer to that is. I just know that I love the series now. I think it's amazing, it's wonderful, it's great. And loving the series from the anime perspective has allowed me to appreciate the manga a bit more. And so I am going to try to finish collecting it this year, if I can manage it. I have the first 6 and the 8th. I'm missing the 7th, and then I have another 5 after that. So that should be pretty easy to do. Not sure if I'll complete it or not, but it should be relatively easy to do. So yeah, that's one issue or one manga volume that I read this month. I also read Record of Ragnarok 13. This is great. I really enjoyed it. This ends the fight between Buddha and Zerofuku, or whatever this character is. I can't remember his name. Let's see. Hajun, the Berserker of Helheim, or basically a legendary devil character, if that makes sense. It was pretty good. I enjoyed it. I can't wait to start the next one. And we do get introduced to Beelzebub, who is basically like the most evil character, where before you thought it was the Allfather Odin, apparently it's Beelzebub that's the most evil character, which is pretty interesting. I quite like that. I'm looking forward to seeing more of like the Kabbalic, Abrahamic, Christian kind of stuff showing up. I think it'll be cool. But yeah, that's it for that. I don't really have too much to say about Record of Ragnarok, to be honest with you. I did read through Blue Lock 18, which finishes off the U20 arc and starts the Neo Egoist saga. I have it back there somewhere, so I'm not going to reach for it to show you, but book 19 just came out, and I will get my hands on that as soon as possible, hopefully quite soon, but if not, it's all right. I will eventually pick it up. And Blue Lock is great. I really, really love it. I think it's fun. The ending of the U20 series saga or story was great. I really loved it. I like that Yoichi is actually the hero at the end of it. Like, he gets to beat Rin, he gets to beat Bachira, and he promises the world that Japan will be the next winner of the U20 World Cup. And I think that's awesome. But can he really make it to that? Can he live up to his promise? I think that's going to be very difficult. And the Neo Egoist saga is very cool as well. I think it's really, really interesting how that works out. It's completely unbelievable. Jinpachi Ego might be an amazing trainer, but there's no way that he could have swung what he swung with the Neo Egoist saga. But, it's fake, so who cares? But it's just very ridiculous. Beyond that, I've been reading through a few other things as well. I was going to show you something, but I'll actually show you a different one first. I read through Green Blood, finally. I've had this in my collection for a long time, and I finally got around to it. This was another June on the Range reading that I wanted to do, that I managed to do. I'm very happy about that. And this is a very interesting story. It starts off as a American gang story, kind of something similar to Peaky Blinders, but set in the U.S., where it's right after the Civil War. The U.S. is different now than it was before. There's a lot of turmoil, and immigrants are continuing to arrive through New York and the harbors of the East Coast. And we follow a character whose name is Brad, who works as a gangster for one of these gangs in this area in New York. And initially, it does have that Western vibe from the get-go, but it almost feels more like a Peaky Blinders situation, a gangster series for the first 2 books or so. At the end of that, what happens is that the characters end up in a gang war. They leave their safety in New York, and they move out west. And that's when the proper Western type story starts, with the introduction of Brad's father, Edward King, and the development that, Brad has this revenge pact with his father. He wants to kill him. He wants to end his life and hopefully gain peace and remove the suffering that he feels from the death of his mother and the abandonment of his father, right? And so the story really does become a proper Western by the end. You have Native Americans, you have black cowboys, you have, everything that you would expect from a cowboy story, a Western story, but with the distinct situation that this is made by a Japanese creator. And so it doesn't have the same general understanding of like America that we might have if we wrote this story. It has a different lens to it. It feels almost a bit more mythical, if that makes sense. I hadn't really thought about it until recently, so that's why I'm talking about it now, and I didn't mention it in my review, but it's a pretty cool take. It's really interesting to see what Japan thinks of the Wild West, or the early days of the Wild West. It's almost like what Japan must feel when they watch an American samurai movie, right? Like when they watch Shogun, or they're like, oh, this is way more mystical and way more like ancient feeling than what we actually did. I don't know. It's kind of interesting. I don't know if they care all that much or if that makes sense at all, but I thought it was great. Following in that, I read another frontier story. This is not really a Western, but it is the Japanese equivalent of it, sort of, and that would be Golden Kamuy. And Golden Kamuy follows a character who is a soldier. He used to fight in the Russo-Japanese War. That's the war between Japan and Russia over Manchuria, I guess, is what it's called now. The region above Hokkaido that is technically Russian, but China has had for a long time. And it's a constant place where a lot of these characters or a lot of these countries fight for a long time. It's kind of unclear why. I don't know. I mean, in the modern sense, it might be for oil, but I don't know why they cared about it at that point. Japan didn't really need to fight that war. My understanding is that all the resources that they could have wanted from that place already existed in Hokkaido, which is basically the Japanese equivalent of Alaska, actually, and also a bit more like the Wild West of Japan. In Golden Kamuy, we follow the story of Sugimoto, who is a soldier in the Russo-Japanese War. He was dubbed the Immortal by his comrades because he managed to survive through the whole war, not necessarily unscathed, but managing to live through very serious injuries, right? He's done with the war has ended, Japan won, and he has moved to Hokkaido to try to find gold in Hokkaido and to try to raise some of that gold so he can send it back to a woman he left behind, who's not really his wife or his girlfriend, but someone that he promised to take care of for someone else. And as he's panhandling, he hears a tale of this ancient, or maybe not ancient, but hidden Ainu treasure. The Ainu are like the Japanese equivalent of Native Americans, right? They're Aboriginal type characters. And they have very specific beliefs and thoughts, and they are mistreated by the Japanese government very harshly. And so he hears this tale of the Ainu gold, and then he runs into an Ainu girl whose name is Aserpa. And he and Aserpa come up to a understanding with each other. They grow fond of each other, and they go on this journey to collect basically the skins of these prisoners who have a map etched into their bodies. And it's very cool. And you get a lot of interesting characters introduced. There's one character that used to be the leader of the samurai before Japan got rid of that system. There's a guy that used to be the leader of one of the divisions that fought in the Russo-Japanese War that now is angry at the fact that his people, his division was left out and not taken care of properly. There's Sugimoto himself, who's basically just doing this for one person. And of course, Aserpa, the Ainu people have their own kind of skin in the game, and it's really cool. So we have Golden Kamuy 1, 2, great cover there, I love that. 3, very fun. This is a character that used to be a samurai. 4, which I'm currently reading through. Let's see, this one. 4, which I'm currently reading through. Almost done with it. And 5, which should be the end of my reading journey with Golden Kamuy for the next couple months, because this is all I own of the series. And hopefully I get around to collecting more of it by the end of the year. Who knows if that'll happen? I'm not really sure myself, to be honest with you, because there's a lot of stuff that I want to collect instead at this point. And Golden Komui is awesome. I really, really loved it. I think it's really great. But there's priority to other stuff, right? But this series has been awesome. It is kind of a Japanese Western. It follows this soldier character who goes out to the edge of civilization, to the frontier, and he's searching for gold, and he's friends with Native American equivalent characters, the native Japanese people, the Ainu, and he's dealing with soldiers, and he's dealing with random bandits, and he's dealing with nature, and he's fighting bears and wolves, and hunting for sustenance, and it's just great. And it also does something really interesting, which is teach you, the reader, about the Ainu culture, which is something that most of us in America might not know at all. What the hell is an Ainu? Kind of the way that no one might know what a Native American, a Comanche might be, right? Or a Sioux or whatever, right? So really good stuff. I've really, really enjoyed my time this month. I think that I've read some really awesome stuff. Some stinkers here and there, but nothing too bad. But those are my thoughts for my reading and my watching this month. What have you guys watched? What have you guys read? Let me know down in the comments. And thank you guys so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. See you guys next time.